Hello and welcome to T Money Talks. In this week's episode, T Money's going to talk about what it's been like learning how to walk again and anything else that may come up on their mind. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Hello, and welcome to T Money Talks. I hope everyone is doing okay and staying warm and celebrating all the great things that have happened. I guess they're great things. I mean, yeah, they're good. You know, the Cheeto Man will no longer be our president very soon, and that, I feel like, ladies and gentlemen, is the most important part, that we no longer have to have a Cheeto with a wig on as our president. Anyways, ha ha ha, that's the only politics talk you will ever hear me talk about again. That's done. Okay, now on to the next segment. Anyways, yes, sorry. This week we are going to be talking about me and my process of learning how to walk. So I don't know, I'm a bit nervous to share, but at the same time I also feel like I'm absolutely ready to share this story, this process, because I opened up a little bit about it last week towards the end of the podcast, towards the end of last week's episode, dived in just a little. And I felt like, you know what, maybe now's the time to talk about what that was like and all that jazz. But I feel like I gotta ease into that because I don't know how it's gonna go down. I don't know what's gonna be said, We're just gonna vibe with the ride. But I do have some other good news. I now have listeners in Germany and Norway. That is really cool. Also, still thank you again to Singapore and India and Ireland and the Netherlands and Russia and the United States as well, of course. Thank you to everyone who listens. I do hope you guys enjoy each and every episode and share this with others that you may think find this interesting, or just help them to open their minds up just a little bit, because that's really what I'm trying to do here. We all gotta expand the brains just a little bit. But anyways, that's the exciting news. Is I always enjoy finding out I have a new listeners in other parts of the world, because then it's like, oh cool, people actually are listening to me talk to myself and I'm not genuinely just talking to myself. Which is cool. But either way, even if no one listened to this, I would still do this because it's fun and I have a good time, and I feel like you should have a good time because it's always a good time here on down on T Money Talks. Anyways, yes, I'm nervous. I'm sorry. I feel like I had a lot more things that I wanted to discuss. I know I had more topics, because I know this is how it always starts off. A couple of days before I have to start the next episode, I'll be thinking and brainstorming in my head, oh yeah, or I could talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about this, and then this and this, and then I never talk about any of those things, or I'll forget the things I'm talking about, and then as the podcast goes on, I remember everything towards the end, and it's well, I should have wrote it down, and I never do, but I'm learning, I'm vibing, and it's okay, because I feel like the reason why I don't write them down though is because if it doesn't happen naturally, or it doesn't happen organically, or the thought just doesn't pop up in my head again, then I feel like then it wasn't meant to be talked about. Then it wasn't meant to, the universe that's the universe way of telling me that, hey, what you think you want to talk about isn't ready for the world to be, or you don't want to share that yet, so that's why I don't write things down, is because whatever needs to be said will be said, and what doesn't won't. There's a timing for everything, and I am just trusting within the process, just like the process of recovery. Ha ha ha. I'm sorry. Yes, that is just the topic of my recovery, of learning how to walk again. I think I have mentioned a little bit before that I was in an accident that puts me in the position to have to learn how to walk again. But I know for legal reasons I didn't really dive deep into it, and for those same legal reasons I still can't really talk much about the accident. So this is me not talking about the situation, but more so what it was, how it's been for me learning how to walk. Because isn't it interesting having to hear about someone who is old enough, who has lived a life, have to learn how to walk again. I totally lost my train of thought right there. But yes, isn't it very interesting, like someone who, an adult who already who's grown up, who's walked their entire life, is now relearning how to walk again as if they were a baby. It's very interesting process and story, I feel like, and I think it's time for the world to know, because it's not the way I thought it was going to happen, I guess, in a sense. Like the whole learning to walk, I thought it was going to be a lot easier, but now I feel like now I have a better understanding and an appreciation for babies and toddlers and small children. Because like in the sense of, now I understand why they always want to be carried all the time, is because their little feet hurt, man. Their little toesies, they're tired, they're exhausted. And now I understand and I can relate to that pain. And now from now on, if any child or toddler wants me to carry them, I will gladly carry them, because I know that they are probably suffering in a lot of pain because their feetsies cannot handle the walking and the stuff that they have been doing. That is one thing I've absolutely learned in walking, that your feet really have to carry your entire body weight with you. And if like walking isn't something you do every day, like it's exhausting. It's an exhausting thing to do. And I feel like a lot of us don't understand that because we don't remember what it was like learning how to walk. I mean, yeah, like from working jobs and learning what it's like to stand for like 6 to 8 hours a day, yeah, you could kind of like sympathize with that. But like the whole process of just walking is something completely different. It's like a whole separate category from just standing, so it's very hard to learn how to walk, which is surprising because you would think it would be easy, because it's like just something you don't think about anymore. And I think my music stopped playing, and I totally, oh, nope, just kidding, it's still going. Ha ha ha. Anyways, but yeah, learning how to walk, it was hard. It was hard because I definitely so haha, okay, I'm losing track. I'm like going all over the place. Okay, let's start over. Hi, hello. Here we go. Okay, we're gonna start from the beginning of the process, and we're just gonna finish to the end. We're just gonna do it like a story, because if I do it any other way, it's gonna be out of whack, we're just gonna be all over the place, and I'm not gonna do that to you or myself. Anyways, so for about 6 months, I spent my life in a wheelchair. I was unable to walk. I was unable to do anything with my right foot. I could not put any pressure on it. I could not do anything to further injure it or anything, So for about 6 months, I was in a wheelchair. And then after those 6 months, once I was cleared from my doctor, I then began physical therapy. And physical therapy is where I learned to walk. Now, during the time of the 6 months of me not walking, occasionally I would I would say to like my friends, I'd be like, guys, what if I forgot how to walk? And then they would be like, oh my God, no, don't say that, And then, of course, like for the most part, it was a joke, like, ha ha ha, what if I forgot how to walk? Until it got more closer and closer to physical therapy time, when I would realize, like, yo, I think I forgot how to walk. I don't know how to do it, or like I understand, like I know how to walk, but I don't know how to walk, if that makes sense. And I hope it does make sense, in the sense of, I understand that it's like one foot in front of the other and stuff, but at the same time, I was afraid because of my foot, and so in the process I just forgot how to walk. And the start of physical therapy, I had to wear my walking boot, and they had to give me 2 crutches so I could basically learn how to take my first steps again, since for 6 months I was not doing any walking. And I remember when they gave me both crutches and then they're like, okay, walk. I literally was like, I just looked at my feet and I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can. I don't know how to. And so I almost fell first time. I know it's not funny. I know it's not funny. But it's funny. It's a little bit funny, It's a little bit funny because I'm an adult and then I stand up and they give me these crutches and then they're like walk. And you would think like I have 2 crutches, 2 things that like could keep me extremely stable. Like I should not fall whatsoever. But I do. I almost fall. But you have to remember at this early in the accident, my arm was still recovering because it was also broken. So it was like not as strong. It didn't have the strength that it once was. So and my leg also I had lost all of the leg muscles that I have, like my calf, like I could slap it and it would just like wiggle wiggle around. That's how long it took. That's how quick like my muscles like just were gone, and which is why I had to learn how to walk again. I had to build those muscles up and everything. So yeah, when they wanted to see like how much I had how much they had to work with for me, it was really hard to take that first step. But then once they told me reminded me like how to do the steps and stuff, how the motion works, my knee, then it would buckle. So then that became an issue with the walking. But anyways, in general, just know that the very first like time in physical therapy with 2 crutches was very hard. And it took me like a couple of like almost like 2 months to master just being able to walk with both crutches. Is how it took like another like 2 months. Because even after I started going to physical therapy, I was still very much using the wheelchair because of how tired and how much pain I would be in after physical therapy or after walking with the 2 crutches and the walking boot. Is because like I had surgery, so my foot is still healing from the surgery, and then it's having to carry the weight of my body. And so it's just a whole lot of movement and new things going on for my foot when my foot hadn't done anything for like 6 months. So it was a really long process. But after I had finally mastered like walking with 2 crutches, like I could start running with the walking boot and 2 crutches, is when it became easier for me to go to walking with the cane. And then, but of course, as each phase like we went through before I finally got into where it's just shoes again, it took at least 2 to 3 months for me to fully master that like next step in the process of learning to walk, which is a lot longer of a recovery than I think for other people, or for most people, I guess, for the injury that I had. Even though everyone says like the injury I had is a very long recovery, for whatever reason it felt like everyone made me feel like I should have been healed by now, which was a little upsetting because I kept hearing, oh, it takes a long time for this to recover. But then like my doctor and sometimes one of my physical therapists are like, they kind of make it feel like I should have been past where I am in the process of healing. But then I have Deanna, who's the lady physical therapist, and she's just so lovely, and I love her. I wish more of my physical therapy appointments were with her, because every time I would work with her, she would remind me and let me know that, hey, it's okay that you're not as far along in the healing process, because everybody heals differently. Healing takes time, like because of things aren't just gonna happen overnight. And she would always let me know and help me not feel bad for having taken so long to recover. And I was like, thank you. That's exactly what I needed, especially because I feel like no one really understood how the process, which is also why I wanted to talk about this, is because the other thing is you don't know what it's like to have to learn how to walk again until you do it yourself. And there's just no other way to explain it than that. Is you really can't understand the pain that I've had to endure on the trauma unless you have gone through it as well. Like, you could try to imagine, you could try to sympathize with me, but in the end, you won't really know. You could just understand and acknowledge the pain that I've went through. Because to be able to go from doing things on your own every day, being completely independent, to one day just having to have someone do everything for you is unimaginable. And I feel like that's something that a person can't understand, like truly can't understand or relate to or imagine until it happens to you, until you are put in that situation. You can't understand how hard and how painful that is, because for most people, when we have to rely on other people, when we have to the need to have to be helped by someone else, is when we're children, is when we're a baby, when we need our parents, when we need to be taken care of. Not when you're an adult, when you've lived your whole life being able to do the things for yourself, so I feel like you can't relate to that pain until it happens to you. So that also is something that I had to struggle a lot with through this process as well, is because, like I said, how sometimes my doctors or people would make me feel like I should be longer in my recovery. That's because they don't understand what it's like, what I'm actually going through, how hard it is. And that's okay, not everyone's going to understand, but it was very frustrating for me to hear people tell me those things, or try to relate to me, or try to tell me that, like, they understand, they see what I'm going through, but it's like, but you don't understand, you don't really understand. And that's the frustrating part. But anyways, after I moved on, after like I had finally mastered the double crutches, which I think it definitely took about 3 months for me to master walking with 2 crutches and finally be comfortable to walk with the cane. Because originally the plan with my physical therapist was that I would walk with 2 crutches, then I would learn to walk with just 1 crutch, and then I would learn to walk without crutches. But because I took a lot longer to learn everything, we had to kind of like zoom through stuff towards the end when I started getting really comfortable. Because I'm technically still in physical therapy, even though I'm fine. Like right now, at this point in time, today, like as you're listening to this, I am walking in shoes with no brace, no nothing. It's just me, myself, and I. And I'm still in physical therapy. And we are currently in November, and I have had this injury since February. So yes, as you can see, it has been a very long process. But yes, by the time I finally was ready to move down to 1 crutch, I was too afraid to really trust my foot to take the weight of me to take a walk, to take the next step with just the 1 crutch. So we had to put me with a cane, because I didn't want to use a walker. 1, because I would feel too much like an old lady, and I was just like, I already feel terrible enough. I don't need to add on to this pain. And then when we did try the walker, it was just too much for my wrist, because it was still recovering as well. So we stuck with the cane, and I was like, fabulous, because I know the perfect cane. And my cane folds, like it folds into 4, and you could like flip it out, and it's really cool. And that is exactly why I was like, I will be happy walking around with a cane for the rest of my life, because I would do it before the accident. But yeah, so I got to get my foldable cane, and then it took me another 3 months to master walking in the walking boot with the cane. So I did when I learned to walk with crutches, it was in a walking boot. So the whole time I'm in physical therapy, I'm doing these stages, it's in a walking boot. I haven't even tried walking on just my foot and just, with anything else. So yes, then we walked to the cane in the walking boot, and I mastered that again after 3 months. But however, this is now like 6 months. No, just kidding. I keep saying months. But the time, again, the way I view time in my head, the way it feels like, it feels like years. So anyway, but yes, just understand that it's taken a long time to learn how to walk. So everyone's kind of like, this is a lot longer process than they had expected. So they're trying to like speed along things. But anyway, so yes, it took like a long time. We're just going to keep with the 2 to 3 months for me to master the walking with the cane. So by the time I was ready for me to just learn walking with nothing, no cane, no crutches, just me in the walking boot, they were already putting me in shoes and a brace. So while I was in physical therapy, after I had finished mastering walking with just a cane, in physical therapy, they would have me take off my walking boot, put me in shoes with an ankle brace that my doctor prescribed for me, and then I would do physical therapy in shoes and my brace. But when I would go home, I would be still wearing my walking boot, and I would be walking in the walking boot and a cane because I didn't feel ready to just go back into shoes. So the reason why the process took so long as well is because even though my physical therapists were putting me in shoes again, were telling me I no longer needed the walking boot, I personally didn't feel ready to just automatically take out the walking boot altogether. So I took my healing process a little bit longer because I wanted my foot to be as healed as possible, or I wanted to feel as comfortable as I possibly could with my foot, because again, I have to build a new relationship with my foot that I thought would always, help me out by allowing me to walk always, and then suddenly one day, like, haha, just kidding, I can't no more. So, I have to learn how to trust my foot again. And I didn't feel ready to just start going into shoes and a brace. I didn't feel comfortable with that. So I had to build that comfort, that trust with my foot again in order for me to further along in my healing process. And so that did slow it down a little bit, but I think that helped tremendously because now in the present day, my foot is now starting to feel so much better, and I don't have as many side effects as other people have had. Like, for example, I don't have any pain in my heel when I walk, whereas my doctor was saying that someone else similar to my age, similar injury, he recovered faster, like he was walking quicker, like his recovery was a lot shorter than mine, but he has pain when he walks in his heel. So, sure, I have taken a lot longer than what was expected, but I recovered and healed better. And because of that, I don't care. Because now my body, my foot is better healed. It's better, it's just much better than what could have been had I let everyone push me and I just moved with the speed that everyone was trying to force on me, rather than listening to my body and just letting my body tell me when it's ready to take that next step in the journey. And I'm really glad I took it that way, because honestly, I think that's how we have to deal with everything, is just to listen to ourselves, because my foot absolutely told me when it was ready to try the next thing. Because when I was finally ready to let go of the walking boot, I was ready to walk without anything. So when it got to a point where when we would go to physical therapy, they knew I would still wear my walking boot outside. When I was home, I would only wear the shoes and my brace at physical therapy. But there was one day where I just knew my foot was ready to just get rid of the walking boot altogether. And I got to physical therapy, and again, I would still be walking with the cane. So this was before the final stage is me just walking like aid free, without crutches, without a cane, without someone making sure I don't fall. There was just one day I walked into physical therapy with my cane in my walking boot, and I changed into my foot brace and my socks and shoes. And I took a few steps to get onto the bike. And my physical therapist, Deanna, says, "How do you feel about trying to walk without the cane?" And I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready for it. Because normally when they would ask me questions like, how do you feel with like walking with the no shoes, or how, stuff like that, I would be terrified. I'd be like, no, I'm too scared. Like, that scares me. But when she asked me, how do you feel with walking without the cane, I knew I was ready because I listened to my body. My foot just felt strong. It felt ready. It felt like it could handle my entire weight, like my whole body on, like just walking, like without anything to help keep me up. And then I did it. And then that day I totally transitioned into shoes and my brace. And then after that, it then took me even longer to build the trust that my foot was ready to walk without my brace. So even though I mastered walking with crutches and walking with a brace, that was mastered with a walking boot. So it then had to turn into me doing with the brace, and then I built this comfort with the brace that I could only walk in shoes as long as I had my brace on, because I didn't trust it with it just my bare foot in socks and shoes, because that was terrifying. That's scary. For 6 months everyone told me no pressure, don't do anything. If you put any amount of pressure on it, you're just going to destroy your foot. And so I had this fear that if I put pressure on it, my foot is just gonna break. I'm just gonna do the Bella Swan when she gives birth. And her like ribs, and you hear that crack. Like, that's literally what I imagined would happen to my foot if I took a step. And so I had that fear this whole time I'm in physical therapy. This whole time I'm learning how to walk again, I have this fear that I'm gonna Bella Swan if I take a step the wrong way. And that's something that I feel like not everyone understood. That could be because that's not something you could see. It's not like I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna die every time I take a step, because who does that? It's just this internal fear, and that's the part that people don't see. That's why when I say you don't understand how I feel, is because you don't see 100% how I feel. You don't see all the trauma, all the PTSD, all the triggers that have come because of this. And so it is very frustrating a lot of the time. But anyways, yes, so I had to build this relationship with my brace and my shoes, because then now I had to listen and wait for my foot to be comfortable with the brace and shoes. And so it took a little bit longer than the walking boot, but that's because my foot was constantly swelling up again, because it had to get used to walking with me. Just walking, just carrying my weight. So, but because of the accident in the metal plate, it would swell up. And so a lot of the time I didn't want to walk. So, and of course, the only way to get better, to heal a little bit quicker, is to walk. But again, when you spend half the day walking and your foot swells up, it's kind of painful. So it kind of makes you not want to walk as much as you should, which also then makes the recovery a lot longer. And so that's why it's just taken so long. But again, I listened to my body and it recovered better than it could have. Whoa. Sorry, I got lost. I got tired. It was just really tiring telling that. Anyways. Anyways, yes. So I did wait. I listened to my body to tell me. I waited for my foot to tell me when it was ready to try walking without the brace. Because every time I would go to physical therapy, like every couple of weeks or so, my physical therapist, Deanna, would be, "Are you ready?" I would ask if I'm ready to try walking without the brace. And I would let her know. She would ask me, like, how do I feel about it? And half of the time, I'd always be like, I'm terrified. I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready for it. Until, again, there was a day when my foot let me know. She was like, "Hey, I'm ready to walk without this brace." And that day, my God, changed my life. Is it was the same thing. I was walking to physical therapy, no cane. I was a little bit slow because it was just the brace in me. But the whole time I could just feel it, like I'm ready to walk without this brace. And so I get there and Deanna asked me, she's like, "How do you want to try walking without your brace?" And I told her, I was like, "I'm terrified to, but I'm ready." And she said, "Okay, let's try it." And I took off my brace, put my sock and shoe back on, and I took my step without my brace, and it was magical. It was terrifying, but it was exhilarating to take like a first step to experience what a baby experiences as an adult was just incredible to take that step after so long, after watching yourself do this whole ass process. Pardon the language if there are children present, but the whole process, and then to finally get to where you've been, to finally get to the goal, like start seeing the goal that you've been trying to get to finally walk without that brace, was just so, it was the greatest feeling. It was so great, so exciting. It was so, I have no words for it. That's just how great it was. Is just finally walking with shoes on. And of course, I still was using the brace after that appointment, but I was also trying to walk without it as well. So I was trying, it was a little late. It was like 50-50 before I moved on to just the no brace anymore, which is now how I currently am. I haven't touched the brace or the walking boot or the cane or the crutches in like a couple of months, which is pretty good. Which is not pretty good, it's really good. I've come a really long way from this recovery and learning how to walk, and just by telling you everything, it was you could tell it was a lot. It was a long process, but I still, however, didn't get to see everything, and that's okay, because I also don't, I feel like I don't, I mean, no, I remember everything. I remember but there were, just as everything, some days were harder than others. Some days were easier, and that's okay. That's the way recovery is. But, as you could hear, it's a long, really hard, sometimes painful process. And although I know people will try to whatever, I can't speak right now. Anyways, I know you will try, I'll try to understand and kind of, be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for all your troubles and all this chat," and like, I appreciate that. Like, of course, thank you. I'm not a horrible person. I'm not evil. I'm not going to be like, "No, don't talk to me like that. Don't tell me you feel sorry for me." Like, obviously, like, a thank you, it's appreciated, but I just know a person, I feel like you will never truly understand what I have endured and what I have gone through. But I do appreciate having to know that people are there to listen and, help as much as they could. Because honestly, I feel like that's the best you could do, especially if you know someone who's going through something like this. I think the best you can do for them is just ask them what they need or how you could be there to help them in any way, because there's nothing really else you could do for them. And it's because everyone else is different. And I know for me, a lot of the time, I just wanted for someone to ask me what I needed rather than trying to give me what they thought I needed. Because you don't know what a person needs unless you ask them. And so I know for me, a lot of the time I would get frustrated with like my family or someone because they were trying to help me, but they don't know how to help me. So that was really hard. So I'd say my best advice, if you want to help someone, if you're going through something like this, is just to ask them what they need, not try to give them things that they need. And if they say, I just want to be alone, like, and you think, oh, but I don't think that's a good idea for you to be alone right now. No, don't say that. Just let them be alone. Because honestly, I think for me, having the time to be alone with like myself and everything helped the process a lot as well, because I feel like whenever I was around like other people, whenever like my family or I was at the doctor's, you kind of gotta put on like a bit of an act, like, oh, I'm doing great, like, yeah, everything's good, man, it's the best day. You gotta act a little bit strong or whatever. So with having that alone time allows us, it allowed me to feel everything. It allowed me to process what was happening to me, accepting, like, like, oh my gosh, I can't walk, or I'm learning how to walk, or like, I really hate when people come up to me and be like, oh, why aren't you, I thought you'd be walking by now, like, oh really, I thought you'd learn by now, like, just the stupidity of some people sometimes. And no, I take that back. I can't say stupidity, because I just think people need to be more conscious of what they say, because it's another thing that frustrated me is when I would see people and then they would see that I'm still like, I haven't mastered walking yet. I'm still learning. I'm still practicing to walk. And then they'd be like, oh, you're still using the cane, or you're still in the walking boot? Like, dog, I saw you like, what, 3 weeks ago? You think somehow magically I'm going to be like mastered walking? I think that's one of the most frustrating things, is having someone like, oh, I thought you would have been healed by now, is definitely, watch out what you're gonna say. Or if you want to like be the guy who jokes about the tragedy, like, oh, ha ha ha, like, watch out next time, like, also don't do that either, because I also had some people do that to me, and that one was just as frustrating, because like, I understand you're trying to make light of of a bad situation, you're trying to make jokes, but it's not funny to joke about, like, oh, don't try to be like me, like, type stuff like that. Like, that's not funny, dog. Like, I'm recovering. So just definitely be there for them by asking them what they need, and being mindful of what you say around them. Because another thing I also hate a lot that people ask me, or they tell, or sometimes someone will be like, oh, are you ready to drive? And I'll be like, no, I'm scared. And then they'll laugh. Don't do that either, because like, you would think, which is why, again, I say, you don't understand what my pain is, because people will be like, ha ha ha, why are you afraid to drive again? Dog, I went through something traumatic, like, I got PTSD, dog. You think so? So it's not funny to laugh, because I'm genuinely like, I'm not ready to drive, and that's okay. But yes, just be mindful is all I really gotta say, is be mindful around people who have gone through car accidents, because unless you have gone through a major one like myself, don't make jokes. Don't do dumb things. Watch what you say. Anyways, yes, I kind of lost track of what my train of thought, so I'm going to go with that as the universe telling me that I need to stop talking. But yes, that's what it was like, learning how to walk again. It was very long, very hard, but man, I am here. I am walking again. I haven't used my crutch, my cane in a while, and every day, my foot gets a little bit better, gets a little bit stronger. I feel I am, again, like I said, at the end of, like I said last week, I do feel normal again. Like, I feel things are starting to become normal again for me, and that's really all I could ask for, is for my life to slowly go back to what it once was, to where hopefully I could run again, where maybe I could live a life where I no longer double think about the next step I'm going to take, or watch every step I do, you know? So I look forward to that day. But of course, it's a recovery, it's a process, it's a long time. And all I could do is wait and make it through the process. And I know that everything's going to be okay. And I'm healing. I'm better than where I was before. And that's all that matters. So, with that light-hearted spiel, the time is slowly coming. So I think this is a perfect time to bring us on home. So until next time, guys, this is T Money saying live your life, because you're the only one who get it. All right, bye.